Hi, Mage Knight community again. Another unboxing video of some Nexus and Omens packs. Let me readjust this. I'll do probably 3 or 4 packs of Nexus and another of Omens. Let's see if I finish up my Atlantean Empire collection out of these ones, and we'll get right to it. Oh. So I got some nice stuff out of the last few packs, and this was something I actually remember doing back in the day. Is you feel a pack and if it's bulgy, you might get a good figure because a lot of the Draconum Solnalvi were large, so they would cause the pack to bulge a bit. That's kind of pointless, or you could just as easily get a mediocre figure, but it's something that we did. So I got something kind of neat, something that I actually already have. It's a Maelstrom Golem. This guy is probably one of the few very good golems in 2.0. Because unfortunately the golems were not so good in 2.0. That said, he's not unique, so I can have multiple of him in an army, so that's kind of nice to have multiples. He is fairly strong, sweep with 180 arc, charge of 8, 18 defense and 4 damage. Pretty nice. Maintains that 10 attack, and gains toughness, which is unfortunately doesn't have with first click, but it keeps it for the second. Goes up to 12 attack, very handy. Defense drops, but gains frenzy, which is kind of too bad. Drops back down, drops to 3 damage, 11 attack. But overall, very strong stats, all things considered. And let's see, a quick fly through the dial. Doesn't looks like there is a repair marker right there on click number 3. So you need Golem Core to repair him back up to there. But overall, pretty strong figure. Also, kind of interestingly, let me see if it shows on the back of this. The actual paint job on this is more or less black and orange, and depending on the light and how you look at it, you can kind of see hints of gold, but it is very different than the promo art of golden orange. The black and orange doesn't look too bad, but the golden orange would have been a bit more regal, nice looking. But yeah, so that might have actually been the bulge in the pack. So let's see what else I get. Got Dagon again. So this figure was in the last video, so I'm not going to really talk about him too much, but he is a okay figure, but his stats leave a lot to be desired given his point value. So this figure also won't, actually both the next figures might have been part of the bulge, especially this one given how his hand is. So this is Rygelon 2.0 version. His arm, I think, is typically supposed to be straight out as opposed to like up like this, to be out. That said, it doesn't actually look all that bad because he's kind of like eyeing up someone. Anyways, Dragon Mystics. 19 defend, kind of hard to see there. Stormfire, 12 range, 3 damage. 3 damage in close combat. Strong Flyer of 9 speeds, not the best, but it's doable. Gains toughness and command. Attack drops a little bit. And he is a fairly settled dial, lots of command. But yeah, he's a decent figure, flying. He's a flying Stormfire monster, and can even be a wielder with the Dragon Mystics. So visually, he's also pretty cool, actually. A lot of nice orange and multicolor skin, little tan skin for him, the orange hand. So pretty cool figure, actually. Last one is another Draconum, someone that I actually got already from prior, not in this series of videos, but prior Nexus pack. It's the Dracona Myrmidon. I guess in 2.0, these guys are now Draconum aligned as opposed to Mage spawn. But this guy is a short speed of 8, but 12 attack, weapon master, and vulnerability that he maintains for a second slot, which is kind of handy. So he can surge and still be decently defensible. And maintains that weapon master for a long time until he gets to 10 attack, 3 damage. Maintains that for quite a bit too, even going down to 9 attack, 3 damage, and then 2 damage. So he is very stable. 97 points is unfortunately slow for him and being unreliable, having to depend on Weapon Master so much, but pretty strong overall, as the Draconum typically are. I'm not sure actually if Nexus has relics or items, but I've not pulled one. So if they do, they might be rarer. If they don't, well. First figure, which I like the model quite a bit, is Temple Master. Or I guess Temple Lord. 1.0 version is Temple Master. He is the defend subfaction ability. I think it's actually Temple Master. Temple Mastery, something like that. He's also kind of doubles as a Force March figure because he has Pathfinder. 12 attack, 4 damage, toughness of 16, so defending with that is mediocre, but I guess he can benefit from defend of other figures. Drops immediately to 11 attack, 3 damage, which is too bad. Loses defend after that, 10 attack, 3 damage. So his stats drop pretty precipitously, but they bounce back up to 10 attack sweep, which is nice with the 135 degree arc, 3 damage. And he maintains and gets better until he dies. So he starts up strong, drops quickly, and then comes back. Pretty neat figure. 80 points is not too bad given his relative stability of a dial, but pretty cool figure. Next is Jarl Stonehill. Talked about him in my last video. It's low range really hurts him, and relatively high point costs given his all his stats is not great. So more thoughts on him in my last video. Next is another Black Powder Revolutionary figure. It is the Khamsin Peacekeeper, actually Thorn Commando now. It used to be in 1.0 Khamsin Peacekeeper. I like the Khamsin Peacekeeper model a little bit more in paint job, but still, this is, I guess, an upgraded version, so to speak. Bloody Thorn sub-faction is actually deceptively strong, even for melee units, but especially for range, being able to spin and attack. 8, although that said, with Bound, it's a little less important, but stationary attacking. So with Bound, he becomes a decent range attacker, although 8 attack is quite low. 9 attack, 3 damage, double shot is handy, toughness is great. Gains Overwatch, which, not a fan of Overwatch, but here we go. Anyways, his stats are all start low and are never that good, which is unfortunate, which you really need a relic to make this guy good. I remember when he first came out, a lot of people were considering him as a wielder of Snow's Fuse Rifle. With the Nimble from Bloody Thorns, that does make him good, and Snow's Fuse Rifle will really buff his attack, so it's not a bad idea. Lastly is the Sentry Golem, and I remember these being very mediocre when they came out in 1.0, but let's see how it is now. So he has Infiltrate to start and 9 range, which is not awful, not the best. 9 attack, or 10 attack at range, 9 in close combat, and 3 damage. So it's not bad. 43 points is a little much, especially with all this drop-off of stats. His stats are not great for 43 points, and they drop off pretty quickly. So, unfortunately, still not very good of a figure. Continues the trend in 2.0 of golems being not that great, unfortunately. So, first figure is an Amethyst Knight. I actually like the 1.0 paint job on more than this one, but still a very cool model. Unfortunately, his pike's a little bent, so I'll see if I can slowly force that straight. 1.0 is pretty good. Let's see how 2.0 is. So he has a 7 charge, which is not bad, but not the best. But with ram is pretty handy. 4 damage, 11 attack, 17 toughness, all very good stats. 71 points, relatively inexpensive also. Gains sweep on his second click, maintains 11 attack, 4 damage. Defense drops to 16, but still toughness and pretty stable. Next click, third click, gains Venom, very handy. Loses the charge, but still has 10 attack, 3 damage. and very slowly goes down. So he is a pretty stable dial, very good unit. Slightly different, I guess, format than the original one, but it's still very strong. Very good figure, given his points. Next one I have, which I originally owned the 1.0 version, but since traded it away, is the new Queen Corilla, now Solonavi aligned. So she is slightly different now. I think before she's a bit more of a team player because I believe she might have had Force March, but now she has quickness, toughness, 12 attack, very nice attack, especially 70 points, command, and weapon master. Maintains a very similar dial, though loses the toughness immediately, which is too bad for second click. Third click, relatively stable and slowly drops her attack, but gains sweep nicely, especially with the sweep and weapon master. And that, what's that? 1, 2, third click in. And has pretty stable stats. And so dropping from originally 12 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 clicks of 10 attack. And either weapon master or 3 damage. Pretty good. Parry will help her try to stay alive, although 14 defense is pretty low. And then after that she drops off, although dropping only to 8 attack. Pretty good for 70 points, actually. I guess what does she add to a Solonavi army, though? So I guess if you need a relatively inexpensive beater for filling out points, but I feel like a lot of Solonavi can do service as powerful beaters, so I'm not sure how useful she is, although having quickness is a handy ability. Next was originally Sidora, I believe, from 1.0, but is now the Wilden Bandit, a elemental archer, 65 points. 10 range is not bad. A lot of the elemental archers have shorter ranges than, say, their Elven Lord counterparts in 2.0 at the very least. 3 damage, though, is handy. Has all sorts of hiding abilities. Has Wilden Host ability, so it can ignore hindering. Has Pathfinder, so it can move quickly. Stealth and Infiltrate. Arcing Fire has all kinds of things to be able to get into the battlefield and attack early. Even respectable close combat stats. Gains Toughness, handy, very handy ability. Maintains its attack for a little bit. Gains Pierce late, which is kind of too bad, but instead of Pathfinder, it gets Bound on this click, which I believe that's third click. Then gains Stealth again, and has a relatively stable dial. Even this late, maintains 9 attack at range, dropping down to 8. So this is a pretty good figure. In terms of 65 points, that is a significant amount of points, but all things considered, she is very stable. I'd say a respectable figure to have. The last figure of this pack is another repeat. Kind of too bad. Steel. Mediocre figure, although his stats start out strong. 10 quickness, 10 attack, 4 damage, dodge. Drops up pretty quickly, which is a little too bad. At 63 points, I'd prefer to have something like the Wilden Bandit. First figure, very powerful monster in 1.0. Let's see how he stacks up now, is the Dwarven Hammer Skald. He was a beast of a figure originally printed. He had sweep and 5 damage, 180-degree arc. Let's see how he is now. Only 4 damage, but crushing blow, 12 attack, 18 defense. Moderately slow at 7, but that's a given for dwarves. 89 points is, I think, fairly comparable to his original printing, but that is a lot of damage he can dish out early. Maintains pretty much identical stats between click 1 and 2, very stable there. That said, after the third click, drops down, loses sweep, which is unfortunate. Gains parry, which is actually very good with the 18 defense, unlike most parry users later on their dial where they have already easy to hit defenses. So he maintains very powerful stats. So exceptionally stable throughout, 9 attack, 3 damage, even this far in. His last few dials are less impressive, but still respectable, 8 attack, 2 damage. So an exceptionally stable figure, close combat monster. I'd say probably fairly stands up to his original printing pretty well. So if you need, he is slow, which is the only unfortunate part, but if you need a strong beater, he fits the bill pretty well. Next figure, Core Gunner, another figure I actually already own, but bought off someone online. Used to be an Amazon model, Queen Aurora, I believe. But now they're using the model for Atlantis, giving them the Atlantean paint job of purple, and instead of this, I guess, being a black powder gun, it's kind of being a Atlantean, probably lightning mortar or something to that extent. Anyways, kind of an odd figure because it starts out as a stationary figure with 9 range. 4 damage is very handy, especially for 68 points at range, but 9 range is not that great. Gains Pierce on the second click, loses it again, which is kind of odd, but then gains Bound to actually be able to take advantage of its 4 damage at range effectively, having 16-inch range, which is not too bad. Takes some more hits and is lost again. Overall, that's a lot of points for kind of an unstable dial, and especially has to take a number of hits before it's really useful to gain Bound. Kind of too bad for Atlantis that they lost their seat of being ranged monsters, but that's how it is. Next is the Circle Sage. So again, something that can go into any faction, make formations, and kind of make up for what that faction lacks. But a lot of what I would like in this figure is in the later part of the dial, which will be hard to either waste moves or force him into combat to get hurt. He starts out as kind of a, I wouldn't say centerpiece, but as a secondary attacker that he's not awful at, but isn't as good as you would like for, say, 50 points. Had a couple more thoughts on him, but he was opened in another video of mine, so I won't talk about him too much. Lastly is a figure I'm very happy to get, because I don't own him yet. It's the new version of the Mage Stone Lord. 35 points, relatively inexpensive. Let's see how he looks. So he has magic resistance, which is nice. 15 defense will really help him against other magic users. 10 attack at range with Mage Blast. 10 range is not bad for 35 points, although I wish it could be better. I guess he trades it off for being pretty strong in close combat. 9 attack, 3 damage is not bad. Really stable, same stats virtually for click 1 and 2, loses 1 speed. Even the click after that, he's not too bad, 9 attack at range, but then after that he really drops off. So for 35 points, he's not all that awful, but you can probably find other better Mage Blast users, but still very happy to get him, because now I own that figure. And I will finish up the video with one Omens pack. So first, got here the Troll Berserker. These guys, the weak and tough versions, I believe, were elemental, but the standard version is Apocalypse. And he has an interesting dial. Starting out pretty weak, Frenzy, 9 speed, which is interesting for a troll. 7 attack, 18 defense, very high, 2 damage. So he's mediocre, especially for 47 points. But as you hurt him, he gets stronger. His attack goes up. And while his defense goes down slightly, his damage also goes up to 9 attack 4 damage, 9 attack 4, 10 4, 10 and 4 before he dies. But he also gains vampirism to help buffer the fact that you have to hurt him to get him stronger. So he's a very interesting figure. Not exactly sure how he would play out in a game, but a very neat one at that. Next figure from the pack, another one of these, not one that I'm super thrilled about, the old Wave Spawn. Last time I think I had a standard or tough version. This is the weak version, 25 points. Not too bad, I guess, given that, but I'd prefer better harassers. Submerged is handy with 9 charge and 9 attack 2 damage. Drops off immediately, but maintains the 9 attack 2 damage. So you could do worse, and probably the weak is one of the better ones for a Submerge army, despite it being less stable than the higher versions. But for point or effectiveness value, probably one of the better strengths to get. Next is one that I kind of like the model on, but is arguably not the best, is Swordbane. 42 points, very tough little guy, 18 defense, invulnerability, crushing blow, 6 move, very slow. So I guess the main thing is that seems like a lot of good stats. Let's see how he drops. He loses invulnerability immediately, gains toughness, still keeps that, or not crushing or smite before, now thunder blow. 9 attack is not helping thunder blow, and then he drops off even more. So this guy's very high defense, so I guess he could defend an objective decently well if you can get him there. But other than that, he is a lot of points for not a whole lot of value. Last figure of this pack is the Scalesworn Militia, kind of reminiscent of the Scalesworn Thrall from 1.0. It's a human aligned with Draconum. Standard version, 48 points. See how he looks. 8 charge, sweep, 3 damage. Pretty nice with 135 degree arc, 17 defense, 10 attack. Pretty good, very stable from click 1 and click 2. Drops the sweep for click 3, but gains, I believe that is counterattack. Yes, counterattack. Keeps the charge for a very significant period of time. Quite stable, so this guy is pretty good. 48 points is a decent amount, but this guy is pretty stable and can break up smaller swarms pretty well. So all in all, it's a good figure. Lastly, I'll show off what card I got in this pack, and it is the City of Fairhaven. So I actually already have this terrain location, but it's a very nice one for Atlanteans. Makes better close combat attacks because the Atlanteans don't have a ton of super high point value figures, and it also gives proficient wand users the surge proficiency, which there's not a lot that would want to attack in close combat, but I guess if you have the option, this is not too bad. So that's it for this unboxing video. Thank you so much for watching. There will be one more of just 3 more Nexus packs and 1 remaining Omen pack to see what I get if I can finish off my Atlantean collection. Still missing a few more figures, notably the Xanderesan Captain, so that I can pair it with my Xanderesan Sailor. Then there's a couple other ones I can't remember off the top of my head, but we'll see how it goes. So thank you again for watching, and until the next one.